Hey guys, Henry here, and today we're going to be talking about Survivor Season 40, Winners at War, Episode 11, recapping the episode and sharing my thoughts. So, we start post-Tribal Council. Within the previous episode, we had Jeremy using his advantage to get the hell out of Tribal and save himself by not being able to cast a vote, and in the process, leaving his alliance vulnerable. Everyone comes back and he sees Tyson has been the one that was voted off. And immediately it's a bit awkward and no one really wants to explain to Jeremy what exactly happened at Tribal. No one really wanting to talk to him or associate with him. And it seems like the vibe is that Jeremy is enemy number one. He's drawn a bit of a target on his back. The bigger group initially wanted to vote him out, but they couldn't, so it's likely they'll try again, and now his alliance is probably ticked off that he left them for dead. The very next morning though, Tony goes on an idol hunt, and he knows that once an idol has been played, which it did by Kim last night, it goes back into the game. And up until this point, he's done really well to play a really conservative game. He's not left the camp to go idol hunting. He's not gone crazy and made everyone suspicious of him. He has a little bit, but it was just a little blip, which he managed to overcome. But I think he's been quite level-headed so far. But he ends up going out nice and early while everyone's still asleep, understanding that everyone's a bit exhausted from Tribal Council, but he runs into Nick out there as well, but he manages to steer Nick in a direction that he's already searched, and he keeps searching and he eventually finds the hidden immunity idol. And I think this honestly sets up Tony very nicely at this point in the game. Tony has used idols very effectively in the season that he won, so maybe he'll be able to do something really exciting. The more I watch Tony this season, the more I'm rooting for him to win the entire thing. He's so entertaining, he's so energetic, and even just his confessionals, they're really lighthearted, not too serious. He doesn't take himself too serious. He knows it's a game, and he plays it like a game. He's not taking anything to heart. He's willing to, just lie to people and just say whatever other people want to hear. And I think I like that about Tony, that it's not so serious. It's quite a lighthearted thing. And, his just general attitude and his determination, it just makes me want to root for him. During the next day, when they're back at camp, Tony is trying to stay in the good graces of the side that he actually left behind, because he was initially part of that, the Lions group with Tyson, Jeremy, and Ben, but him and Ben sort of just went off, and we're going to get rid of Jeremy. So he goes back to Jeremy, and he tries to tell him that he's actually on their side. He tries to convince Kim and Michele as well, trying to make them all think that, Tony's actually on their side and they will have the numbers. They'll be 5-4. And it cuts immediately to Jeremy saying that he thinks Tony is super solid with them and he's really comfortable. And then also cuts to Kim saying she sees straight through it. So it's really interesting to see how different people are interpreting Tony's message. It's a bit worrying that Jeremy can't see Tony playing him a little bit. I really like Jeremy's game so far, so I was hoping that he'd, be a bit more perceptive and sort of see through this, but, it is what it is, and you just trust the people you trust, and you sort of doubt the people you doubt when you're on Survivor. You don't know where your alliances necessarily lie, you just have to believe in what they're telling you. We then go to the edge of extinction, and we get some interesting comments from Tyson. As he sees Adam is struggling on extinction, he says something about, losing the game of Survivor can crush some people. I think it's a bit harsh, but okay. Then we go to Natalie and Parvati. They find a clue that leads them to check underneath the shelter at the edge of extinction, and everyone's just chilling there all day long. So they are unable to have a look. They need to wait a while. But eventually, Parvati uses the sunset as an excuse to distract people and get them to go look at it, while Natalie finds the note and the advantage underneath the shelter. The advantage turns out to be an extortion advantage, which allows you to block a player from participating in the next immunity challenge and from also voting in the next tribal council, unless they pay the amount of fire tokens demanded. It's an extremely powerful advantage. It's basically going to blow up someone's game unless they get the tokens demanded. So they want to make sure they pick someone that they know can round up the tokens, and they end up picking Tony. Tony first finds the little note. He's sprinting off into the jungle and he trips over, rips it out, and he starts reading it, and he thinks that he's being given the advantage to extort someone. But as he reads on all the way to the end, he realizes that no, actually, he's the one that's being extorted. And they want 6 fire tokens, while he only holds 3. So Tony's completely stressing out because he needs to get these tokens before the next immunity challenge, which is right around the corner. So he asks Michele, and Michele spent her tokens on her 50-50 advantage, but as she doesn't want to tell Tony that she's got an advantage like that, she smoothly makes up another reason for not having any fire tokens, saying that she spent 4 fire tokens on an advantage that can only be used if she goes to the edge of extinction. Very quick thinking. So Tony ends up having to ask other people, and he manages to get 3 additional tokens from Nick, Jeremy, and Ben, promising them to pay them back. So he eventually gets all 6 tokens that he needs, and he pays the price of the extortion disadvantage. And I think it was glossed over quite quickly, the way he just got those fire tokens, because I'm really interested to see what each of Jeremy, Nick, and Ben thought of the others giving a token to Tony. So do Ben and Nick know that Tony is playing Jeremy? And does Jeremy think Tony is playing both Nick and Ben? Like, if I was Jeremy, I'd be questioning, why would Nick and Ben give you fire tokens? Do they trust you that much? Surely they'd be a little bit suspicious. But it was very quick. It just basically was, I need the tokens, and 5 minutes later, he's got the tokens. So we go to the immunity challenge, and they need to balance a statue while standing on a beam. They're balancing it with a little pole. And in the end, it gets down to Tony, Jeremy, and Ben. Ben and Jeremy drop off, and Tony wins another immunity challenge. So he wins immunity for the next tribal council and 2 fire tokens as well. And my first thought was, who is he going to pay back first? He's got 2 fire tokens. He owes 3. Who is he going to pay back? But we don't see that in this episode. We don't see him pay anyone back. So I don't know if anyone's chasing him up and chasing him for that debt, but I'd be interested to see how that pans out. So after winning immunity, Tony's in the driver's seat again, and his first thought is that he wants to vote out Jeremy. The big group, led by Sophie and Sarah, with Ben and Nick going along with them, want to get out Jeremy as well, so they're planning to throw the bulk of their votes at Jeremy and a few at Michele just in case. And Kim and Denise jump on the bandwagon to save their own asses, so they basically are agreeing to blindside Jeremy to stay alive. And Kim and Denise go to tell Jeremy that they'll go with him and Michele, and hopefully Tony, to get Ben out. And Jeremy believes them. So now I'm just thinking, like, man, Jeremy really has lost his grip on the game. First believing that Tony's really with them, and now Kim and Denise are also going against him, and he doesn't even realize it. And it's funny because Jeremy's starting to get annoyed at Ben, and that's why he wants to vote Ben out. And I feel like, that's not the greatest strategic move, just trying to vote someone you're getting annoyed at. You got to think a bit further than that, Jeremy. Come on, man. Yeah, based off the way Ben has talked to Adam and Jeremy, I can sort of see why he'd be getting annoyed. But at the same time, the game is much bigger than that. He needs to think bigger picture and think of the impact of these moves and who to strategically get out, not just who's annoying you. But as things seem to be settled down, no one's running around trying to make new plans. Everyone seems pretty comfortable. Tony decides, nah, I want to throw a spanner in the works and try to blindside Sophie, who he feels is getting a little too close with Sarah, who is meant to be his partner as part of Cops R Us. And Tony obviously knows that Sophie's been playing a really good game, and getting out Sophie now would be an optimal play. And Tony plans to only spring the idea on Jeremy and Michele just minutes before they have to head off to Tribal, leaving them less time to change their minds or question it. Tony also goes to talk to Nick to bring him on board because he needs that extra number to make sure that if it's him, Jeremy, Michele, and Nick, they've got 4, and that'll be enough because there's going to be 2 votes on Michele and 3 votes on Jeremy in that case. Nick seems surprisingly very easy to sway. He thinks about it for about 30 seconds and then tells Tony he's down. And then Tony goes to tell Jeremy that Kim and Denise are going against him and they're going to blindside him, but Jeremy doesn't believe Tony. And Jeremy just wants to stick with his plan to get rid of Ben and that he trusts Denise and Kim are with him. Tony's basically just like, look, I'm giving you this option to vote for Sophie. You can either take it or leave it, but I'm telling you now that if you don't take it, you're going to be the one going home. So going into Tribal, I honestly had no feel for where it was going to go. I didn't know where Jeremy stood, what he was going to do with the vote. I didn't know whether Nick was just talking shit or if he's actually going to vote Sophie. So I knew Tribal Council was going to be extremely interesting. In the end, 3 votes come out for Jeremy, 2 votes come out for Michele, and then bam, 4 votes come out for Sophie, and she's out, and she's got an idol in her pocket. She's completely blindsided. It's sad to see Sophie go. I really liked her chances to go far in this season. She seemed in control, but very low-key at the same time. But that's the thing about this game. It's completely unpredictable. It really sucks that she didn't get to play her idol, but that just goes to show the beauty of the blind side. Tony leaving the chat to vote Sophie to very late, so Sophie couldn't have a chance to get wind of her name potentially being thrown out there, and for her to think that she might need to play her idol if she felt threatened. So she just felt comfortable the entire time and ended up getting knocked off. And man, Tony, he's just gunning it in this episode. Getting the idol, getting disadvantaged, but then getting enough fire tokens to get rid of the extortion, winning his second immunity, and then blindsiding Sophie. But at the end of the day, that also just means that he might have a bigger target on his back. I'm glad Jeremy believed Tony in the end, because to see this blindside play out was really awesome. And in this game right now, there are no solid alliances. It is constantly shifting. No one is really in the driver's seat. In fact, Sophie felt like she had the most control up until now, and Tony just recognized that and decided to get rid of her. In a game like this with all winners, you really have to play perfectly and balance your game. Never get too high and never get too low. While I like Tony's plays of recent, I think someone like Denise, Nick, or Michele are probably sitting in really good spots right now. They're just hovering around the middle, sort of just going with the flow. There's no targets on their back. Honestly, Denise is not even appearing in these episodes. Honestly, I thought she had a big target on her back going to the merge, and she's just, completely gotten rid of that. Sarah losing Sophie as an ally will definitely make her mad at Tony, as Sophie was sort of Sarah's meat shield in a way. As usual, I can't wait to see what happens next week. It looks like Kim and Denise are planning a move against Tony, and it should be good. Thank you guys for watching this video. Be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of this episode. Did you guys think Sophie was going to go a little bit further? Because honestly, I did, and I'm a little bit disappointed she got out a bit early. But, that's the game. That's the nature of the Survivor. That's how it is. But now I'm rooting for Tony all the way. And that's all for this video. Thank you guys again, and I'll catch you guys next time.